welcome dear devotees with our pranams to revered Swami Sarvasthananda Maharaj. We are beginning the sixth session on the Raj Yoga. So, and thank you for joining in. And Swamiji, if you could please start the class.
Yeah. Om Namasri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. So we will briefly recapitulate what we discussed, especially some of the important aspects of our own mind which we need to understand before we try to control it. That is the idea. And as I said, our Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, on which Swamiji has commented, is based on the philosophy of Sankhya. And the philosophy of Sankhya, of course, forms the basis of philosophy of Vedanta as well. Whether you consider Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Patanjali's system, or the Vedanta system, the system of Vedanta, which has several aspects which we will not discuss right now. But the basis is the philosophy of Sankhya as expounded originally, they say, by Kapila Muni. So we have external objects. How a person who is interacting with the world, what is the person's relationship to his world, the world around him? Right now, we will not consider, at least Patanjali does not start any discussion with the concept of God as such. He is concerned with a human being who has a dual nature. One is the Purusha, which is the consciousness, and the other is Prakriti, which is the external world around him, including his own body, mind, and other things. So, there is no discussion on God or any concept of God as such. So, we are dealing with our own minds. We need to know what our minds are in relationship to our own body and in relationship to other minds and other bodies and other objects around us. That is all what is required in a scientific study or scientific approach to the study of human personality, which leads to the science of Raj Yoga. Now, to briefly recapitulate, there are external objects which we see around us. They may be human beings, they may be objects, inanimate objects, trees. And we have outer organs, the organs which help us, which are our windows to the outside world. We perceive the world around us through the five organs, which are known as the outer organs, or also known as Gyanendriya. So we perceive that. And there are inner organs corresponding to those outer organs. We call it, they are Gyanendriyas, but they are the inner subtle things in our personality, subtle organs in our personality, which does not have an external shape. For example, we have eyes, but there's a nerve center in the brain which helps the organ of the eye to see, or the organ of the ear to hear. So these inner organs are located in the brain, the nerve centers, and they are all coordinated there, or some kind of coherent perception is a result when we see things, when we hear things. Many things happen simultaneously. We see, we hear, we smell. So all the organs are constantly giving us information. Now that is presented to the mind, or which is also known as manas, the lower mind, the reactive mind. According to some philosophies, or according to some Vedantic schools, even this manas is one of the indriyas, because it coordinates and all the organs. So manas is also one of the indriyas. Now, the information that a human being or a personality perceives when it interacts with the world outside is presented to the buddhi, which is distinguished from manas, because manas is, as some Vedanta schools hold, it is just an extension of the indriya. It is something that connects all our sense organs, the subtle sense organs, to the brain. So manas is the reactive mind, lower mind you can say. But to make sense of what you see, to make complete sense, to use our reasoning, to react in a proper way, we use what is known as buddhi, which is slightly a refined form of manas. And then everything, all these things, this phenomena of seeing objects outside, there is an object outside, the organs see it, presents it to the inner organs, which are the centers of nerve centers in the brain. Then it is presented first to the manas or mind, lower mind. The lower mind presents it to the higher mind, and then decisions are taken. So the Purusha, the consciousness, is an observer in all these things. There has to be some observer. And what happens is, it gives out reactions. So all our external responses to external inputs is what is known as thought. Thought becomes actions. Because first the reaction is in the form of a thought. We call it thought waves or vrittis. Vrittis arise in the mind, and those vrittis, either we act upon it or just keep quiet. If our intellect is more active, then we decide when and where to react. We just don't react in an autonomous way. This action-reaction, if it is autonomous, you can say it is the mind that is controlling us. We just react. We see something and we just react. We don't think. We don't deliberate. We don't take an informed decision. We just react, and the mind gives, there are waves in the mind which we cannot control. So this mechanism should be known. And one more thing, Patanjali makes it very clear that all these things, the external objects, the external organs, the internal organs, the vrittis, including the intellect or buddhi, they all form part of Prakriti. They are inert. Without Purusha, the conscious principle in us, nothing makes any sense. So it is necessary for the whole process to complete the existence of a conscious principle within us, which is known as Purusha. Vedanta calls it Brahman or Atman, whatever word you use. Patanjali's yoga will call it Purusha. All are material, including our thoughts. They are material, mind you. This is a very important point you have to remember. Mind is also material. Just as we manipulate material things, we can manipulate the mind using higher and higher faculties. Our buddhi can tame our restless mind or a reactive mind, which is absolutely reactive. At the slightest pretext, it will react if it is not controlled. So it has to be, there may be many reasons why the mind gives out such waves. That doesn't mean we have to just wait and watch, and that role is played by buddhi or intellect. So from buddhi to the gross matter, from sthula from sukshma, more subtle to the more gross, they are all one continuous Prakriti. So this idea should be very clear. Mind is the instrument, our mind or our buddhi is the instrument of the Purusha to deal with the external world. That is why so much importance is given in Patanjali's yoga to control the mind. Asana, pranayama, they are also there. They control the body, they control the life forces. the Pranamaya Kosha and other things, other aspects of our personality. But Patanjali seems to be in a hurry to jump to mind control. He goes to the level of manas because he starts the sutras. We will start the sutras soon. This is the introduction with Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. What is Patanjali's yoga? Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So he doesn't, though he discusses later asanas, pranayama, the other aspects, gross aspects of our personality, but he expects us as decent human beings to be in a good control over our organs, not like animals. We are having much better control over our physical organs, physical indriyas, and also a little bit of the reactive mind. They assume, Patanjali assumes, because to stop the thought currents, to stop the restless mind, without any kind of training, without any kind of restraint of the mind, Patanjali says you are not even capable of starting this Raj Yoga. So that is why he gives the whole background first, the Sankhya philosophy, as Swami Vivekananda gives, in fact, so that we can understand the sutras better. We just can't say Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Then the question may arise. Throughout our childhood, nobody has asked us to control our minds. Now what is this new thing you are telling us? Right from childhood, we have trained our children to make their minds restless, to go it out, to allow it to go outward. Give it many toys, give it so many things. And now you suddenly one day, because you are interested in yoga, you tell the child or somebody to just do Chitta Vritti Nirodha. In the first place, why did we allow the vrittis to come? You first confuse the child and he becomes restless, very difficult to control. And then you say, now you have to control yourself. He says, how do I do it? How do I do it? Chitta Vritti Nirodha is a very simple statement you are telling me, but how do I do it? If 25 years or 30 years or 15 years, whatever age you tell the child, or we try to follow this path of yoga, if suddenly somebody tells you, in the first sutra or the second sutra itself, Patanjali says, yoga means Chitta Vritti Nirodha, to stop the Chitta Vrittis. The child will ask a question, this is not the yoga I want. That's why people, when they say yoga, they are very happy with asanas and pranayama. That is good, because no thought control or is needed. That's what they think. They think yoga means just controlling the body, which is pretty easy for especially those who go to the gym and do exercises. They say, okay, yoga is a better way of controlling our body. Pranayama also they appreciate, because you can control your breath, which is very gross. So these two things they understand, but the problem comes when they suddenly Patanjali begins the Patanjali Sutras, the second sutras. The first sutra is very important. Atha Yoga Anushasanam. He says, now we will start the discipline of yoga. That means he expects the people who even start thinking of Raj Yoga to have disciplined their mind or disciplined their body through a proper behavior, proper etiquette, proper reactions to the world around them. Once they are in control, then they can think of controlling the mind. Atha means now we will talk about yoga. What does this now mean? The commentators say, when he says Atha Yoga Anushasana means, after having more or less made the body and mind steady, now you come to the idea of controlling the vrittis of the mind. So you are supposed to be more or less balanced when it comes to physical reactions, your sense organs and everything is concerned. But what about this nature of the mind which we are trying to control? Chitta Vritti Nirodha is fine. We have to control the mind. So Swamiji gives in his introduction 5 or 6 very important points which describe the nature of our mind. Because we do not know how our mind, before trying to control the mind, we should know what are its properties, what is that which we try to control, why we are not able to control. So what is the very nature of mind? First basic principle which Swamiji says, and which is also mentioned by Krishna to Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Dhyana Yoga. When he says mind is difficult to control, he says yes. It is difficult because it is constantly changing. So when something is constantly changing, to ask somebody to control it is very difficult. So one of the first properties you have to accept, because you have to first list the difficulties that we will encounter when we try to practice Raj Yoga. First is, mind is constantly changing. Second thing, important point, when we discuss the psychology of perception, we said there are external objects. Remember the process, what I said in the beginning of the class. There are external objects. The physical eye, the physical ear, the physical nose, everything perceives it. The organs perceive it, but that is not enough. The internal nerve centers, the internal organs which are located in the brain, they give you an idea of what you are seeing, Can you hear me?
Yes, Swamiji, we can.
We can hear you.
We can.
I think somebody interrupted. 1 minute.
Maybe in the Zoom session.
Maybe in the Zoom session you cannot.
I'll quit this. Okay. Now. So, as I said, first there are objects around you. The whole of Prakriti has been so nicely explained by Swamiji. There is the world, objects, people around you. You see them through your Gyanendriyas, the organs. These are presented to the nerve centers, the subtle organs. So you are going from gross to subtle. The images that you see, they are presented to the brain, which is known as the manas, the lower mind. Then that manas gives reactions immediately. That is the nature of the mind, to react to external suggestions. But there is a higher mind which we need to develop when we do practice Raj Yoga, the intellect which says, wait, you are seeing many things, you are hearing many things, just wait for a moment and try to analyze it, and then if necessary you react. So that is not the reactive mind, that is a that is a mind which is full of discernment or discrimination, which can decide what to do, what not to do. That is known as a higher mind. But mind you, that is also material. So we have to know that to control the intellect, even if we develop it, requires a higher power, something higher than that. Only the Purusha or the consciousness can control it. So the reflected consciousness, which is the highest in Buddhi, is the first thing which we have to develop in yoga. Now, another feature of the mind is, the mind can attach itself to one or more organs simultaneously. This is very easy to understand. Why there is problem is that we don't see things and hear things and smell things. Everything happens simultaneously. And when you try to do multitasking, so many five organs are constantly bombing you with information. The eye says you have to see this. The nose says you have to smell this. So a smell sensation is going to the brain, to the mind. Through the mind, it reaches the brain. So it sees something, smells something, hears something, and trying to process it, the mind gets confused. If there are too many people suddenly coming to a room and everybody starts speaking, you can understand how difficult. There are people who want to be heard. it is good manners to just allow the others to speak. Normally, that is the etiquette which is being taught. When somebody is speaking, you just don't go and shout. It happens. Many times we are not trained. So you can imagine 5 organs. Everybody is giving a sensation to the mind, and the poor mind doesn't know how to process it. That is the challenge. So, one second important point which Swamiji makes is, you have to remember you are dealing with something, a mind which is getting 5 inputs at a time. Though all inputs may not be strong. For example, you may not smell anything when you are seeing. The object that you are seeing may be more important to you than what you are hearing. So that we come to the next property of the mind, which is very important. He says, Swamiji says, that even if we see, we may not perceive it. What do you mean? We are hearing a sound, the ear is hearing that sound, and you are seeing something, but you are so focused, because the mind can never multitask. It can do only one task at a time, but it can do many tasks one after another very fast. That is why we get an idea that we are multitasking, and that is why it creates such a big strain on the mind. We see something, somebody, there is disturbance. That's why they say you have to go to solitude sometimes. At least a few organs are allowed to rest. You don't get external noise. In a busy street, when you are focusing on reading something, you cannot focus because there are so many sound inputs which are coming, and the mind you, our mind is designed in such a way it can do only one task at a time. So that is the essence of what Swamiji says here. We may hear or we may not see if the eyes are open. Eyes may be open. Many times our eyes are open, but our mind is somewhere, or we are hearing some subtle sound somewhere, and we are not focused on what we are seeing. The eye may be seeing, but the mind is not registering it equally. It is not giving equal importance. So, what is the challenge now? The challenge is, according to Swamiji, I was talking of normal person. He cannot multitask. If we try, it will just cause a lot of strain. That is why when Swami Vivekananda said, when you are reading, just read. Don't just do many things at a time. Listening to some music, 100 things if you do, you can't. Then you will spoil everything. So when Swami Vivekananda was reading a simple book as Pickwick Papers, a person came near him, one of the people who wanted to see him, and he thought he was insulting him by not noticing that he was standing nearby. It's not that Swamiji did not see. He saw, but his mind was so focused on what he was reading that he did not notice a person has come. He even might have heard the sound, the ear might have heard, but he ignored it. His mind was so focused. So when you do this kind of, when you have this kind of concentration, then you will find the mind develops a strange power to observe itself. The most difficult thing, according to Swamiji, is mind can see other things, other people, and make judgments upon them. That is the most easiest thing. But how do we make judgments on our own mind? It requires internal reflection. This capacity is present only in human beings. It can judge itself. Animals can't do it. They can just react. But human beings can observe itself as it were. It can observe its own thought. Oh, now I am getting angry. Oh, I should not get angry. Now I am getting upset. I should not get upset. That means somebody or something in the mind, which is the higher mind, is observing our lower mind, which is the reactive mind. So this distinction between manas and buddhi is one of the fundamental discoveries of Indian thought or Patanjali's yoga system. He says they are not the same. When the buddhi is awakened, your mind acts in a different way. You are in better control of the lower mind. So, a perfected mind, that means when your buddhi is totally, fully 100% developed, then only you can multitask. Then only you can, there is an example. There are some perfected minds who can listen. You will not believe, this has been demonstrated. In the earlier days, it was very common. They also called them Shrutidhara. 5 or 6 people simultaneously talking to you, and the mind is so focused that it can hear each conversation and respond to each one of them separately, one after another. Obviously, you can't reply to all simultaneously, but they could hear. There were people so skilled that the perfected mind can be attached to all the organs simultaneously. That multitasking comes, if it comes to a yogi, it will be at a very high state of mind, where the manas has been subdued, the mind has become so calm, the restless mind, the lower mind, manas, that the buddhi is in charge, and the buddhi has the capacity to multitask, and also the buddhi has the capacity to observe itself. That is why Swamiji says this is an important thing to remember. As a result of practicing Raj Yoga, the yogi is able to perceive different mental states at the same time. Now, what are the preliminary preparations? Before entering the Yoga Sutras, Swamiji gives some preliminary preparations, means to get an idea of what really mental control or mind control involves. You have to know the process, otherwise what are the steps, what are the preliminary preparations before even we try to practice Raj Yoga or practice control of the mind. First, let us see what Swamiji says about the goal. What does a yogi or a Raj Yogi or a person who is following Patanjali's yoga seek to achieve? So the goal, according to Swamiji, is a very, very, very strange type of goal he is giving us, which we never think, because we have never been told. That is why we have to read this introduction properly, because Swamiji, after reading all the 700 sutras in the 4 adhyayas, he first speaks of the main goal that is to be achieved. He says one of the goals, it's not the main goal is to detach, be an observer. The Purusha has to be separated from Prakriti and be free. The goal is to be free, in whether it is Vedanta or it is yoga or any, the goal is always moksha. We call it moksha in Vedanta, here we say Kaivalya. Kaivalya is the word that is used. You separate the Purusha and Prakriti, that is Kaivalya. That is the whole struggle. So before that, some minor goals or preparatory goals are to be attained. What is that? He says goal is to attain that fine state of perception. Now our perception is very gross, very superficial. We perceive things and immediately pass judgments. We don't go deep. We are not in a state of an observer. That is why Swamiji says a Sakshi Bhav is so important, that when you watch a movie, you may see many things which you don't like in that movie. But since you know it is a movie, you are just an observer. You have gone to see the movie and then it's over. You don't get involved in the characters of the movie. You just are indifferent. Whether it's a horror movie or a comedy or whatever it is, you may enjoy it as a witness. So that state of mind, the yogi has to attain. It comes when you practice meditation, it will come. A state where you distance yourself from all the things that are going around you. And you really enjoy that state because you are a witness. You don't pass judgments on anyone or anything that is happening. You just be a witness and say that this is the drama of Prakriti that is going on. And my goal is to align myself with the Purusha who is observing all these things. He is neutral. So when a yogi can see his own different mental states, he even appreciates or he even enjoys his own mental states, enjoys in the sense he sees, oh, my mind got angry. His ego is not hurt. He doesn't say, I got angry, and he doesn't get bother his head about it. He just says, you see, I was angry. Sri Ramakrishna's life, you can see this. If he did something good or something foolish, he was not hesitating to admit it. You will find it in the gospel. So many times he said, like a fool he believed. Somebody told him that in a particular season, if you put your head out of the carriage, the cold wind will help you. The cold wind will help you and your health will be good. So he blindly believed like a foolish child. And he put his head out when he was traveling to Kolkata. And then he found when he came back he had a very bad cold. And then he scolded the person who gave this advice. You see here, he is studying his own mind, he is seeing all the different mental states and he is not identifying with that. So also when he sees something in a very, sees a great vision, a very high state of mind, that also he observes. And he says, see, when I was meditating, my mind went there, I saw this, I saw the whole world to be full of like so many pillows and cotton is stuffed in all of them. So all these visions which he saw, the different mental states, he could remember and people got surprised because how many different mental states he passed through. That of a child, that of a guru, that of a fatherly figure. So many roles he played and he was just observing. Similarly, in the life of Krishna we see, he is a Sarathi to Arjuna. He is so many things to so many. He is his relationship with so many people. But throughout, the relationship with Gopis is different, the relationship with Uddhava is different, with the Pandavas is different, even with the Kauravas, Yadavas, everywhere you will find the same Krishna in different roles. But he can see his different mental states and give a correct judgment and not be affected by that. That is why he was so stable during that war. When Arjuna got confused, because he could read his mental state, he could read his own mental state. To read our own mental state is the first step. So that is the goal. First goal to be attained is to attain that fine state of perception. This happens through japa and meditation only. There is no other way. It can happen through disinterested karma yoga when you are in a way you are practicing some kind of concentration. But it is easy to reach this state when you do spiritual practices. That gives you an opportunity. Especially Sri Ramakrishna used to say you have to go to solitude. Because at least few organs are not disturbing you. In solitude you don't see things, you don't encounter people. At least few things do not tax your mind. The mind is left free to focus on meditation and whatever else you want to do. Now that is not enough just to see all the different mental states. That is the first goal that is to be attained. Now assume that you are sitting somewhere, say for half an hour, and you are observing all the mental states. You are not identifying with them and all the mental states are passing before you. Sometimes you are angry with someone, within a few minutes you are thinking good of someone, and all this happens in 1 hour, and you see it as you see some painting or a movie in front of you. You are actually seeing your own mind unfolding many thoughts. Now, after that, it is not just the thoughts that you have to see. What is the connection of thoughts with your whole personality, your body and prana and everything. So Swamiji says when the preliminary preparations when a person makes by practicing yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara. We'll discuss all these things because there are so many sutras trying to describe this. But that is the main part of Raj Yoga. But Swamiji wants to make clear certain things that will happen, certain things that are to be understood as a preliminary step to even start yoga, Patanjali's yoga. First he says, it is so difficult. See, here it is very easy. Swamiji just casually says it because he was doing it every day. He could do it any time of the day, wherever, in whichever state he was. At will he could go into samadhi, or at least he could go into deep meditation. And at will he could withdraw his mind from the most painful circumstances around him. Now how that happens, if you know how, first is how the sensation is traveling. It may be, see, it is so automatic with us. When we see, we don't even bother how the sensation is traveling from the object outside to our brain center. We cannot observe, it is happening so fast. It is just like so many sensations are being bombed. We are bombarded with so many sensations that we don't know how to process them. It is beyond the capacity of the processor that we have. Processor is of course the mind. So, how the sensation is traveling, for that nirjanvas or solitude is prescribed. Then at least you have less senses to deal with. You don't have noisy environment. You don't have so many distracting things because you are alone. So that is why solitude is given so much importance by Sri Ramakrishna. He starts, the first thing he told M was Ekantavas. He said, can you do for one day? Or can you do, first he said, can you do it for 3 days? Then he said, oh, at least can you do for 1 day? Ekanta means really ekanta, not staying with the family. He just came away. Sri Ramakrishna made so much, gave him so many facilities. He said, you stay in the kutia, that where he did Advaita Sadhana. Nobody will come there. And he said, don't even come for prasad here. Because if you come, you will meet so many people. I will give you, he even arranged for some materials, some fuel, some rice and other things so that he can cook it himself. So much care he took of M, because he knew what kind of situation he is living in. What was the situation in his house which almost drove him to commit suicide. So he wanted M to really experience solitude, and he did whatever he could. He said, if you read the gospel, you will find that M is coming here. He came often, very often he came. But Sri Ramakrishna sent him away to some solitude. Of course, he was talking with other people. That was one part of his role in Sri Ramakrishna's life, to note down what the conversations that were going on. That is gospel. But his personal life, his personal spiritual progress, Thakur was concerned. So he says, go into solitude. And he says, how can I do? He says, I'll make arrangements, you go. But you have to do this nirjanvas. Nirjan means when there are no people. At least that will solve few of the problems, if not all. But still, we have to study our own mind. We may be without people, without noise, without sound. But how to deal with the devils that are already there? The past samskaras, they keep on propping up. And you have to deal with that. That is the second stage. So you have to see how the sensations are traveling, how the mind is receiving these sensations, how it is going to the buddhi. That means your buddhi is awakened. Buddhi's presence is felt. You have developed buddhi by regular spiritual practice. You have developed a buddhi which sees, my mind is now getting suggestion to do this. Should I do this or should I not? Normally we don't reach that state. If the mind tells, if the sense organ tells you just go out and smoke a cigarette, you just do it. You don't even consider thinking whether I should do it or not. But if you have observed, oh, that is because I saw the advertisement or also saw a physical cigarette. Now the thought has come that I should smoke it. But should I? So it is going to the buddhi. That also you have to perceive. And then let the buddhi decide. Now the buddhi says, no, it is harmful for health. You have been doing it, but now you don't do it. Then many other faculties of the mind come and they are to be controlled. Then, finally, he says, you have to focus on how the Purusha sees all this drama. When Sri Ramakrishna identified himself with the Purusha all the time, with the Atman, he could be so egoless because he never felt he was doing something. If I was doing a foolish thing, he said, this is what I did and this is how I suffered. This is how I broke my leg, I broke my arm. Many things, if you see in the gospel, he is very childlike in his nature. That is because the Purusha is observing the whole drama of life as a witness, as a sakshi. That is one of the goals. Now, how it is seen by the Purusha, that means how can we have that sakshi bhava, that feeling that we are observer. It is known as also, in some meditation techniques, it is known as vipassana, how to see clearly. That means not get involved in the seeing process, but just see, just observe. Now, each of these steps, which Swamiji says, first is how the sensation is traveling, how the mind is receiving those sensations, how you are reacting, how it is going to the buddhi and what buddhi decides, and then finally how you detach yourself. Renunciation is nothing but continuous detachment, continuous assertion of the Purusha or the Atman. When you do that, every time you do that, you are detaching with the Prakriti. That is why they say renunciation, abhyasa without vairagya doesn't work. Vairagya means you detach and then you practice. For the practice to be effective, you have to detach. So abhyasa and vairagya, you see everywhere, whether it is Vedanta Sara, Bhagavad Gita, the only way to control the mind is one is repeated practice and also vairagya. How to detach. But if you know how the process is taking place, how the different mental states are created, how the sensation is traveling from outside, how you are disturbed, how the mind is receiving it, and how the buddhi reacts and ignores it. The real challenge is how to ignore it, whether it is pleasant or unpleasant. How to ignore it. How it is seen by the Purusha who is not affected. Sri Ramakrishna was not affected. He says, mind, you bother with all these things, but my soul is completely separated or detached. It even sees how the mind is getting restless. But as an observer, a part of the mind enjoys our own restless mind. We don't get identified with the restless mind. And that is why Thakur could make fun of his own mind, the different mental states he experienced. He was not ashamed of telling what he felt at certain stages and how he laughed at it. Because it is the Purusha who was seeing everything. He was not involving or attaching himself with the lower mental states. Now for that, each of these steps to perceive how the mind is receiving, they require prior preparations. And Patanjali's yoga is all about that. What are the preparations that are necessary? There, Swamiji adds one more thing. Now, this is important for many followers of Ramanuja, the Vishishta Advaita. That is food regulations. Now, when you say ahara shuddhi, people think ahara means only the food that we eat. Of course, that is important. But along with the food that you give to your mind, that is also food. What you see is also food. It is food to the mind. The food that we eat is food to the stomach, which ultimately determines how our prana will behave, how our body will behave, and ultimately how it will affect our mind. So food regulations are necessary. But Swamiji says, here of course he is talking of the food that we eat. But what he says is extremes are to be avoided. That is also what Buddha said. He fasted, and then found that that is not the right way. But he said that you should follow the middle path. So that is a general rule he is giving about food. As one of the preparations is don't avoid extremes. Whether it is eating, whether it is watching something, or whether it is listening to something, don't go to the extreme. Let there be some balance. Balance, samatvam yoga uchyate. Samatvam means proper balance. Sri Krishna also tells Arjuna, one of the ways of controlling the mind or practicing yoga is samatvam, means to be neutral, not to be completely disturbed by strong likes and dislikes. Whether it is food, be moderate in everything. Be moderate in joy, be moderate in sorrow, be moderate in laughing, be moderate in... that is why too much of seriousness is not encouraged, but too much of joy, laughing for the most silly reason. One of our acharyas used to say that some people went on laughing and making fun. That was a habit, of course, that has come from childhood. So he used to say, can you not control your laughter? Why do you, like a monkey, every time you see something exciting, you just raise your eyes, and you have to control that. That control is what he says is necessary. The sensations may be received, and you immediately express joy or some kind of surprise. Then you are not controlling the process. How the mind is receiving, how it goes to the buddhi, and how the buddhi decides whether he should react and how much to react. All these things, they have become habits with us. We call it nature. Oh, it's his nature to be always taking everything lightly and making fun. But then that is not what yoga is all about. Yoga means moderation. Don't laugh too much. Don't be very serious. Both are discouraged. Then don't eat too much. Don't eat too less. So Swamiji says extremes are to be avoided. That is, these are the 5 things he says. Now we come to the 8 steps of Raj Yoga. This is also discussed in the introduction. We will come to these 8 steps in great detail when you come to the different sutras. Though they are not discussed in that order, Patanjali starts with the goal first, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So he starts with what is to be attained, and then he goes to all the steps. But Swamiji, here in the introduction, we will begin that briefly. We'll just make a list of what we are going to discuss in the next class. So in the next 10 minutes, I'll just mention the 8 steps of yoga. All of you, many of you must be knowing this, but it is definitely necessary to make a list of what we are going to discuss, because it is also known as, Patanjali's yoga is also known as Ashtanga yoga. Ashtanga means 8 limbs. Each one of these limbs is important. 8 steps. Swamiji calls it steps. But Anga means limb. So for the whole body, you need different members of the body to make your body complete. So Ashtanga. So there are 8 limbed yoga or 8 steps of Raj Yoga. First is, as I told you, there are 8 steps. The first step is Yama. Yama is not the god Yama, the god of death. Here Yama means five things. Yama is further divided. Yama means internal control, and niyama means external control. So, what do you mean by internal and external? Yama and niyama means internal and external control. Internal control is a mental control. External control is physical control. Suppose you say cleanliness, shaucha. You have to be physically clean. You can't just close your eyes and say, I'm mentally clean and everything around you is dirty. That will not happen. That is not niyama. Niyama means controlling voluntarily with both the mind and the body. Whereas yama, actually, it is also external factor is there, external element is there, but it is mostly mental. So you have to see what is yama and niyama. It is a classification. There are 5 yamas and 5 niyamas. They are the first 2 steps of Raj Yoga. And without that, you can't even start asana. Asana comes, that is posture or yogasanas as we popularly call them. They are the third step. First 2 steps, then we come to the third. Fourth is pranayama. Fifth is pratyahara. What it is, briefly we will see. And then, of course, there are sutras for each one of them. What is pratyahara? In great detail it has been described, and Swamiji himself has commented on that. So we will see that in our subsequent classes, but now let us see what we are going to discuss. First is 8 steps of yoga. Yama, which are made of 5 subdivisions. Yama means these 5. Ahimsa, that is, it may mean non-killing physically, but ahimsa also means you don't hurt others by your thoughts, deed, word or action. You can hurt somebody by thought, you can hurt somebody, you can commit himsa by even words, speaking rudely, and also you can physically kill. So yama means ahimsa, that is 1. Satya, truth. As I said, truth is also of 3 kinds. Physical truth, that is the verbal truth. Truth in action, being true to yourself. And also mental truth, that the intentions are truthful. Nobody knows. See, you may be doing something, but your intentions, if they are not truthful. You're doing it because society demands that you do it. But Thakur used to say, man mukh ek kara. Means your mind is thinking something and you're doing exactly what your mind. So you're holding on to mental truth, physical truth, both. So Satya means, ahimsa is first, Satya is second. Asteya. Asteya literally means non-stealing. Now, it is not just a physical object. It is something that doesn't belong to you. You take it. That is known as asteya. It can be intentional, it can be unintentional. But the idea is, one of the reasons why it is not done, because if the mind takes something which it really doesn't deserve to have, then there is a lot of problems in trying to retain it, or not only retain it, but that guilt feeling will always trouble him. That is the reason. You'll never enjoy that which is copied or stolen. People also do. It's not just stealing. You can steal ideas also. That is why Thakur used to always acknowledge, if he heard something from somebody, he'll say, Tutapuri used to say like this, or Bhagavata says like this. So you don't steal others' thoughts. He was original. Whatever he felt, whatever he thought, they all came from they were highly original. That is why Swamiji says, we are not educated because we went to university where we were taught to learn others' thoughts. They are not our own. So we were taught literally our examination system is teaching us not to be creative, but to steal other thoughts and present it in such a way that you get good marks. So that is rather strange that how our education system has been degraded to a examination system. So for examination system, though you don't steal it, you don't copy these thoughts, but then you take the help of many things to remember, and none of the thoughts are your own. You are just reproducing what others say, and you are judged for that. Of course, it has some value. Definitely, it has a value. That is how our system works now. But one of the aspects of non-stealing is, if you don't own it, if it is not your own, then you have to admit it. That is non-stealing in a subtle way. But otherwise it means not taking things without asking. Sri Ramakrishna, inadvertently somebody, without asking the owner, brought some lemon from a big farm, without asking the owner. And Sri Ramakrishna was so subtle, his mind was so sensitive that he could not drink the lemon juice that was made out of it. He asked the person, "Where did you get these lemons from?" "Oh," he said, "I took it from that particular farm." He says, "The owner, I know, he has given me permission to take those fruits, take those lemons from the tree." So Thakur said, "Then why can't I eat it?" Then he realized, when further inquiry was done, that day the lease had expired, and the lemons from that day or from a day before, it belonged to somebody else. The owner who had told him to take the lemons. You see how subtle this aparigraha is being practiced. Non-stealing, sorry, it is non-stealing. Asteya is practiced by Sri Ramakrishna. Even unconsciously he could not take that which is not taken without permission. If somebody gives him, that is not stealing, but he has to be informed. That's the idea. Then we come to brahmacharya, which is continence. It is very essential, because brahmacharya literally is the bedrock of yama and niyama, and also Patanjali's yoga. This science or this science of yoga can be harmful if people don't practice brahmacharya. That is why it was not taught, including the Upanishads. Of course, Swamiji made it very popular. He gave it, he thought that at least that will inspire some people to practice brahmacharya. That was his attitude. But the Shankaracharyas and are all very particular. They said, okay, Ramayana and Mahabharata you can read, because there is nothing there's many things which people who are leading a householder's life can get inspiration from in the Mahabharata and Ramayana and other Puranas. They are meant for householders. Whereas when you practice yoga, especially the serious, not just the asanas and other things, brahmacharya is insisted upon. At least till you are practicing that yoga. So that is one of the yamas. And then aparigraha, not receiving of any gifts. That is also another aspect. Because if you receive a gift which is conditional, if it is unconditional, it's okay. But very often gifts can be conditional. If it is given out of love, if it is given out of without any condition, then it is fine. But if it is a conditional gift, because everybody who gives a gift, there is some condition, subtle condition. So that is what is meant by aparigraha. Then of course, there is a definition of this. When we discuss the sutras, we'll come to that. So then we have niyama, which we will discuss in the next class. I think we'll keep the session open for some questions if you have, based on what we have discussed. Niyama is just 5 aspects of niyama. Shaucha, that is cleanliness, mental as well as physical. Santosha, contentment, contented with whatever you get, unasked for. Tapas, that is austerity, trying not to listen to anything and everything that your body asks you to do. To restrain is to do tapasya. Tapasya means that the body seeks comfort, you say no. Why do you want to just lie down? Sit. If the body wants to relax, you just do something. Just opposite, not allow the body to dictate to your mind. The mind and the buddhi should dictate to the body. That is the idea behind tapasya. Then swadhyaya, that is study. Swadhyaya means to analyze, to read the scriptures and try to understand its implications. Read the yogic yoga sutras and other things. Then Ishvara pranidhana, self-surrender to a higher reality. Now here Ishvara, for some people they say Ishvara means the supreme reality because they don't believe in a personal God. Yoga system doesn't say that you need to believe in a personal God to practice yoga. So here it may mean Ishvara means the inner controller, the whole controller of this universe, the cosmic controller, that can be interpreted as the word Ishvara. Then we have asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. So if there are some questions, you can ask. If some questions have been typed, are there any questions on YouTube? Huh? Yes, read. There's one question on YouTube.
Yes, Maharaj. Please go ahead. Please.
Oh, yes. Mm.
At what point do you stop advising?
If a person,
No matter how much advice you give to a person, their inherent nature doesn't change.
they got it. Question is, one of the people who are watching on YouTube has asked this question, that no matter how much advice is given, obviously means scriptural advice, all advices need not be followed, especially if it is a worldly advice. So you have to be specific. I think the advice that he means is, whoever has asked, that no matter how much advice is given, the inherent nature always has a tendency to act contrary to the advice given. Yes, that is the challenge. That is the whole of spiritual life. Tapasya is meant for that. We just discussed tapasya. Tapasya means not allowing the body or the mind to do what according to its inherent nature. Follow the path of Shreya rather than Preya. Preya means that which is pleasant. So the inherent nature will tell you, this is pleasant, you do this. But Shreya says, this is good for you, though it is inconvenient, it is unpleasant, you have to do it. So for that, buddhi is required. So the only solution I can say, how to handle this problem, it is to practice yama and niyama. If you are following the practice of yoga, there are other ways, and try to control the mind. See, finally everything, including Vedanta, insists on one thing, that is control of the lower mind by the higher mind, that is buddhi. Okay, that is the solution. The higher mind is always superior to the lower mind, but unfortunately when you say samskaras, or when the person who has asked this question says that our inherent tendencies, what are inherent tendencies? They are samskaras. So they form part of our lower personality. So the mind has to be lifted by one's own mind. When he says, Sri Krishna says, your own mind has to be lifted up by your own mind. That means the buddhi has to lift the manas, or the reactive mind. Oh, and the other part of the question is, at what point should one stop advising? There is no point where, that is why scriptures they say you have to read daily. Somebody asked, why you are reading the Gita daily? I have read it once, I know what is there. Some people can even remember everything. There the question of Smriti comes. Yesterday we discussed four faculties of the Buddhi. One of them is Smriti, memory. Memory means habit. Habit from habit, your memory is strength. You know how to solve the problem, but still the mathematics problem which you are dealing with, the teacher will insist, no, you do it again. If your writing is good, they'll say, no, you keep on writing again and again so that it becomes a habit. So till what point it should be done? Till the point it has become automatic with you, with us. There's no end to this. We cannot stop advising, and the scriptures will not stop advising. That is why Sri Krishna in the gospel, Hriday got bored because he was after some other goal. He wanted money, prosperity and other things, though he was very devoted to his uncle. So one day he said, you are repeating the same thing again and again and again. How long you will repeat? Tell something new. Then Sri Krishna got angry on Hriday. He said, I'll repeat 1,000 times if I know it is good for someone. So our mind is such that it has to be reminded again and again. And Smriti, memory, becomes stronger with repetition. Yeah. One more. You tell? Anything left?
Brahmacharya means in larger context.
In the larger context, brahmacharya means, yeah. Huh?
Means in larger context to desist from anything which is pleasurable.
No.
At least
Yeah. So there are two. Does brahmacharya in a general way mean giving up different kinds of pleasure? Though it is true, but that is not exactly what it is meant here. Here brahmacharya has a specific meaning. At least in Patanjali's yoga, when he says brahmacharya, ultimately brahmacharya means that which enables you to follow the path of Brahman. Brahma acharya. Charya means the path. So what will allow you to follow the path of Brahman? That is to give up that which is not Brahman, that is Prakriti. So one of the important properties of Prakriti is the creative tendency. So this creative tendency gives rise to the various drives which are responsible for creation. So as long as creation continues, our confusion and our problems will continue. So the idea of brahmacharya is to stop this creative process, to stop Prakriti from influencing, creating more problems, because we are always creating new things. If you have problems with 3 things, if you create 5 things or 5 people, the problems will multiply. It is very common sense. So the more Prakriti we go for diversity, even in Prakriti. That is why birth control and all came, because you cannot handle, if it is beyond your control, anything that is beyond your control. You keep on creating things. You can't handle one thing and you are having 4 things to deal with, 4 types of problems, the more variety. So the idea is this creative aspect, when you restrain, it is known as brahmacharya. That is the most general meaning I can give you, because the more you try to become, not in a positive sense, I am not talking of creativity in a positive mental sense. I am talking of the sheer creative urge which will result in more and more complexity in your life. So Sri Krishna gave a nice example. He said there was a person, he had his own problems. Then he married. So the wife's problems were added to his problems. Then he had children. So the children's problems get added. The complications increase. Then the children's wives and their grandchildren. So you can imagine this process somewhere in the sense, at some stage, for serious practitioners of yoga, they felt that if you increase complexity in your life, it is not going to help yoga. That is why brahmacharya has a specific connotation in yoga. Yeah. Huh?
After the question.
What is the second part?
How to achieve asana siddhi?
Yes. Yes. And the second part I'll briefly answer, how to attain asana siddhi. Asana is a very simple definition is given. We'll come to the Yoga Sutra, we'll discuss that. Asana siddhi doesn't mean any asana in which you have some difficulty in sitting. For example, for some Padmasana may not help. Sukhasana may be really helpful for them. For some people, they may even sit in a chair, or they can stretch their legs if they have arthritis. You cannot expect them to sit in an asana. So sitting for half an hour in one steady posture, a posture which does not suit you is not asana. Sthiram Sukham Asana. That is the only definition of asana Patanjali gives. Anything that makes you steady, sthira. And one of the only requirements according to Swamiji is to keep the spinal cord erect, neck, the chest and the head erect. Head, neck and chest should be in a straight line. That is because the nerve currents pass through the spinal cord. So the only sthirata or the only steadiness that is required in an asana is that these three elements should be, is universally accepted, that under no circumstances should your body be bent, because the spinal cord is where all our nerve currents flow. So it has to be straight, and whatever helps you to keep that straight, even if it is lying down, it is fine. They have this shavasana where they lie down. The spine is straight. You lie down on a hard floor. So asana, sitting comfortably for half an hour or even for 1 hour, you can sit. There are some, if some pose helps you to sit continuously for 1 hour, even if it is sitting in a chair, that is fine. As long as your mind, the body is steady, sthiram sukham, and it should not cause pain. Sukham means it should not unnecessarily cause you distraction. Otherwise, the pain of the legs will distract you from sitting in a steady posture. Yes.
Normal days, we can do practice, but when it comes to a professional, it might be difficult to answer.
So, shall we? That seems to be some.
Yeah, there seems to be some drop. Can you hear us, Maharaj?
No,
No, we can't hear.
suddenly the video. So shall we continue?
So we
Address the thing in- Can you hear?
it's breaking. We can hear some words and then some are going. So can you hear us, Maharaj?
No. But
I think there were a few questions, but if with this audio it will not be.
Can you hear me?
No, we are not able to hear you clearly.
Not hear me. Now, can you hear?
It's bit broken. Others, can you please comment if you can hear, or is it from my side? I just want to check.
No, it's breaking.
It's breaking.
It's breaking, Maharaj. Can't hear you.
So you can do.
Maharaj, we will collect the questions and send to you separately, if that is okay. Okay. So I will close this session then. Yeah. So Maharaj, thank you. Thank you very much for this session. It was such a wonderful session. Our next Thursday of November, next Sunday of November, third Sunday of November is 17th November, and everybody, if you have any questions, you can send it to the Tat Padam group. We will collect and send to Swamiji directly. I do have a few. I will definitely send my questions. Pranam Maharaj.
Oh. Om Shanti. Hare.